Coach, just curious if you saw Nick Bosa last night put the whammy on Baker Mayfield and his little antic after that Buckeye history endures kind of thing.
My son sent that to me. I didn't see it, but
You saw it after he sent it to you? Okay. Any comment on that, sir?
well, we're not allowed to taunt in college, so we had our chance and we didn't come through. So, but it looked like they're playing well. Looked like he's doing great. It looks like their team was really, really good. And I had Tevin Coleman, old running back from Indiana, popped a few runs in there. And when I was a young coach at Oklahoma, George Kittle was a high school kid growing up, so watching him play was kind of fun. You know, with some of those guys involved in that game.
Far left, Lori from 610 WTVN.
Coach, every assistant that we've talked to so far has pretty much raved about working with Ryan Day. I'm wondering what your experience has been working with him as the head coach.
Again, very positive. You know, we were pretty close the last few years working together anyway, and so I think I personally felt I had a good pulse of him within our offense. I mean, in my world, even though he's the head guy, we're really working a lot offensively. And as we've went through that the last few years, so it's always been very, very positive. And, you know, again, a lot of respect for what he does, how he does it. I think with my background offense, his background offense, I think we complement each other with some of our strengths and views. And to me, when you're looking at football as a coach, it's no different than in the art world when you go to a museum and you look at a piece of art, people see different things. You know, I see things differently. I don't see them right. I don't see them wrong. I have a view, and I see things. He has a view. Coach Yursich has a view. Coach Alford, Coach Stud, Coach Hart. We all have a bunch of different views. And then what he does in our room and does a great job just managing that. And we try to streamline it so we don't get all over the place. But he's great with, you know, we still spend a lot of time as far as with work, the volume of work. But I think he's very respectful of time, and we can get breaks to get with your family. For example, my Friday night's a big night of prep. I've been fortunate to see my kid play every home game that we've been home. I saw my son play a Friday night game. You know, Coach Meyer would do that and go see Nate play. So I appreciate the opportunity to also, and you're in a great working environment, but you have a lot of family time, which is really cool.
Front row left, Nathan from Cleveland.com.
Just curious what your thoughts on the offensive line after you watched the film from Saturday.
You know, we're playing really hard, and sometimes it's not really as clean or ID'd, or defenses are so multiple where they're coming from, and all of a sudden there's a safety involved in the run game, and you didn't recognize it, and you thought you were working to a linebacker, but in fact that linebacker actually got a little minused over, and it's a safety, and all of a sudden the lineman slanted into a gap. So sometimes there's some muddy water out there, and it's not clean, but they're playing so hard and rolling off the ball, and as the game gets going with Josh and Wyatt and Joan inside, they get a lot of confidence communicating, and you can just see them playing with momentum. And you see them, even though it's not clean all the time, and the way that J.K. and Master and what Tony's doing with the running backs, those guys are running hard. I think the tight end guys are complimenting those guys well. That I think it's not pretty all the time, but I think when you play, you can feel us. You can feel them. You know, you watch sometimes really good defense, you can feel the tape. I think you can feel our offense right now as we're building momentum, and I think really good teams build momentum as the year goes. I think really good running teams build momentum. We're going to play some great run defenses in this league down the stretch. You do every year. I don't know if we played well the other night, but we played awfully hard, and there was a lot of good plays that happened in the run game. That's a credit to those guys and Coach Stud, and I think their effort and mindset, and also the way they're taking care of their bodies and practicing well, because when you're a big dude up there banging now, that adds up. There's a way that we need to practice, that we learn how to play the game right without beating ourselves up. And there's a way that they have to learn how to sleep and eat properly and come in so they can play. It's a fun group right now. I enjoy watching them, enjoy working with them a little bit too.
The momentum, but then you're also talking about things like, you know, taking care of your body. So when it comes to an off week, what is kind of the balance between recuperation and rest, but also wanting to keep the edge that you have now from being 6-0 and the momentum you've built?
Yeah, Coach Day talks a lot to our guys, and they're not there yet because of their age, but he talks about, you know, you want to be a pro. And professionally, you know, your body in this season has value to your career and to what you're trying to accomplish as a player. And so how do you take care of yourself? We can take the foot off the accelerator and lose momentum, which happens a lot in open dates. You can also over-practice as a coach or as a player and push too hard. So there's a balance. And I think the kids that have maturity and the coaches that can see the big picture and have the maturity can find that balance where you get the team fresh, but we can also be fresh and stale. We don't want that. I mean, there's a fine line there. So I think it'd be interesting as we go through this week. And, of course, the key is when we crank back up on Sunday to build momentum and get back into the flow for those next 2 games.
Third row middle, Dan from 11 Warriors.
Kevin, you guys started Joshua Allaby at right tackle on Saturday. Brandon Bowen ended up playing most of the game. Just how do you feel about where you guys are at that right tackle position right now?
They're both pretty good. They've both actually been just minor, but just some little bumps and bruises that they've been dealing with. I think Josh haven't played a lot. Brandon Bowen was a little banged up going into the Nebraska game, was available. Josh went out playing well. Brandon had not practiced a lot that week. Last week they both had practiced a lot, but actually having played more, I think Josh Allaby was a little banged up, and he struggled early, and Coach went with Brandon. We need those guys are capable of being really good, but I think we might need both to be really good, if that makes sense. And they both can play off each other, complement each other, keep each other fresh, keep each other healthy, and they both have some different strengths. So I think as we go down the stretch, I don't know if kind of get tied in. It doesn't matter who's going out there first. They're all playing. And I got a feeling both those cats are going to be playing for us down the stretch in this Big Ten run.
Overall, how do you feel about the way the depth has developed? Guys like Petit Frere and Harry and Gavin and Matthew, how do you feel about how ready those guys are if they need to step in and play?
I'm very confident with the 2 you mentioned for sure with Nick, even though the 2 fifth-year guys are probably a little bit more along with knowledge, but he's had a tremendous offseason, spring. I think he's ready and able to go. I think Coach Stud has a little bit more confidence in a couple of these Big Ten games here with the fifth-year guys, with the veteran side. I think Harry has been very first of all, I think Josh Myers is playing real good. I mean, real good. And real good. And he's playing good. Harry's as good a freshman as I've seen come in that can handle the strength and the mental side of center. And I think he's very capable and able to play right now. He's not because the other guy's playing outstanding. But for a freshman, he is well advanced. And he's done a nice job. We got to keep bringing along our other guard spot there with Gavin Cupp and the young guys. So I think what you could see too, if we had an issue we actually did in practice, is Brandon Bowen could kick back down in the guard where he's played before. So not that we're a revolving door, but we got some options, and Coach Stud will do a great job with those guys.
Third row right, Rob from the Dispatch.
Kevin, you've been around some pretty decent quarterbacks through your years, and then you saw up close and personal Dwayne last year. You didn't know what Justin really was bringing to the table till now. What do you like about him? Are you surprised at all with how advanced he's looked this early?
Well, okay, my concern was, because you made a great point about Dwayne. Dwayne had the value, in my opinion. I was only here for one of those years, but watching JT prepare. And because he was a great prep guy. And the time he put in and the study, and we're limited with how much time we can do, but what he did to get his mind, his body, and everything ready to play at a high level. And I think Dwayne watching that, and I think it's evident by the way Joe Burrow is watching. Joe was here for 3 years developing, and I think that was an awesome deal. I didn't know with Justin coming in, no disrespect, because you're not sitting there, and I know they're doing a great job at Georgia, great coaches and great players, but just what kind of prep guy he was. He's done an awesome job with that. Now, these things are recorded, and I did say back in preseason he's as good a quarterback as I had talent. He's as talented an athlete I've been, so I'm going to stick with that statement right now. He's a talented guy. I've just been impressed with the way he's prepared, and I've been very impressed with his maturity and calmness during the game. And listen to Coach Yurcich on the headset in between drives, because Coach Day gets there a little bit. He gets involved with the game. So Coach Yurcich is the guy talking with Justin between drives. Hey, what did you see there? Why did you do that? Did you see this? And I'm kind of third-party listening once in a while to those conversations. He's very, very calm and very mature during the flow of the game. And he can articulate what he sees, what he likes, what he'd like to do, and he does a great job working with Mike and with Coach Day.
How about his toughness? Not that Dwayne wasn't tough, but his toughness has been brought up. Coach Day talked about it. Where are you on that line of comparing him to other guys? How important is toughness in a QB?
Well, I think there's different types of toughness. Now, there's some quarterbacks that to me can be real tough and never take hits, but just the way they stand in there, their presence, their eye contact, the way they look at people, and the way they is toughness, meaning you're big enough and strong to run through a hit and take a hit. That means you're physically tough. I think all the great quarterbacks have a degree of toughness. JT was extremely tough physically and mentally as a quarterback, and Justin's early in his career, but on the physical side, he's outstanding. And what I'm talking about, what I feel is he's a very mature young man. I think he's got a chance to show a lot of that mental toughness that all the great quarterbacks have. So he's on track to have that skill at a high level. And that's a talent you don't put a stopwatch on. That is a great talent to have.
Right behind him, Patrick from Buckeye Sports Bulletin.
In the second quarter, you had a lot of success running the football, and it seemed like a couple of those runs were really sprung by big blocks by Austin Mack, Jake Hausman. I know Ben Victor had a couple as well. How much do the contributions from the outside, from guys who aren't traditionally expected to do a ton of blocking, how does that free up the interior line? I know Josh Myers had a big block on that 67-yard touchdown run. How does it free up those guys to make plays down the field, and how does that change the way that you can play offense?
Yeah, really, you're making some great points there. To me, you're running the ball is an attitude. It's a mindset, and it's a group set. But so is passing the ball. You don't pass the ball without great protection and spacing and speed and timing, so it takes all 11. I think as the game goes along, if we were to take a sledgehammer and start smashing the walls here, we used to always say pound the rock's the old analogy, right, Jim? We're going to pound the rock. Well, the rock doesn't bust on the first pound. Matter of fact, you don't even make a dent or a crack. But if you keep pounding on the rock and you keep pounding on the rock and you keep pounding on it, as an old Coach Walker did, you keep pounding that rock, it'll eventually bust. I think it's the second, third quarter, as we started early, it doesn't look like much is happening, but if your line keeps coming off those blows and that momentum kind of adds up. So that's a part of maybe the run game as it continues. Plus, as coaches, sometimes maybe you're a little too cute, or you're trying to whatever, you get into a flow of what they're doing. Like we made a couple adjustments, hey, they're supporting this play this way, so get to this run. And some of those runs went for 6 and 7 and 8 that in the first half went for 2 or first quarter went for 2 or 3 or nothing. It was just slight, subtle adjustments that we had to make as coaches. Players have to make those adjustments. You're a wide receiver, you come here to catch your balls. And right now we're running the ball well, and we're trying to get the flow with our quarterback and our receivers in place. But to have those guys sell it and block is the sign of a selflessness that a great team has, and that's tough. I saw Luke Farrell after the game and with his parents, and I made a comment. I said, it's amazing. 4 games you didn't have a catch and you didn't say a negative word. But it's amazing how the good Lord takes care of those who don't complain. And all of a sudden, he wasn't even supposed to even really be in the flow of the picture, and then boom, there's the ball. Come on, all of a sudden you make a touchdown. And like I told him, as soon as that happened on the headphones, I go, hey, a blind hog finds an acre, and anybody can get lucky and make a play. We got to play a good game. There's a lot of football to play. He played a good football game. And that's what, to me, to see Austin Mack have the great competitive Nebraska touchdown catch is awesome. But to sell up for your brother is a part of our brotherhood, and I appreciate the way our perimeter guys are, because they want the ball. Ben Vick wants more of those touchdowns. So does Garrett Wilson. I thought Garrett Wilson did a tremendous job for freshman blocking the other night. You didn't mention him. That's part of him is you didn't sign up for that technically when you signed here, but really once you get here, that's what you buy into. And I appreciate our guys for doing that.
From your right, Austin.
You talked about Luke getting that catch, and I know you can't just measure receptions for success for tight ends. You guys do a lot of other things positionally. Have they got the amount of targets that you expected so far, more or less, through 6 games?
Right now we're probably a little bit, not in just offense, maybe a little bit less because the running game's going. I think we're just kind of lean on that and getting the feel for Justin as a new quarterback and getting him off and started. So in general, probably, I think last year probably a little bit more in that 35 to 40 range throwing. Now we're in that 25 to 30, so we're just a little bit down. And that's just kind of where we're now, and that's kind of week to week, and that I'm sure will change as we keep moving. But it's tough because guys want those targets, and the hardest thing here is to keep great players who every player still has that ego, how to keep him to buy into the team aspect and be humble, because that's a hard job. And
what's that conversation like?
I don't know. You don't control the reads. Even when we've had, for example, specifically in the tight end world, we've had a couple games with specific things that were going to work. Then the flow of the game just never happened. Just never happened. And all of a sudden, here's a play tonight that he's a part of the progression. He's like number 4 in the deal. Seldom, if ever, comes your way, and it becomes a touchdown that we needed that really got the momentum going in that second quarter for us. So Bottom line, we as coaches, it's your ability to connect with the players. As Coach Day was talking to us about today, and as much as anything, if the way I think this world and the way the good Lord's made us, the more we give to others, you're going to get it back. If it's about you, I know every time it's always been about me, it's not seemed to go right. When it's about others, it's amazing how that works out. And then you just keep selling that to the team. And right now, with the way Coach Day and the staff's got it going, there's a lot of buy-in with that right now. We just want to keep that going.
Okay, when you notice,
Does he cut line? Yeah. Lunchroom, I've seen him cut line in lunchroom.
I have cut line many times. Talk about your offensive line past what you were just talking about a while ago. It seems like they've also kind of, through 6 games, passed the toughness test. If that's, I don't even know if you have a toughness test, because to play that position you have to be tough. But have you seen a line become tougher every week? What just in that regard?
And again, another great question. I personally have always felt from years ago, and you're sitting up at gym and play. It's a tough position, but when you pop the pads, you have to build that back up. You don't start back where you were. And then we live also in a day and age where you can overhit and overpractice. So how the balance of building the contact volume you need, keeping your players healthy, keeping them fresh, but also keeping them tough. I think we've done a great job with some of our good on good work and how to make it real work without a lot of volume, but make it quality. And when we go, it's got to be real. We do that in some tackling drills. It's got to be real, but we also can't get guys hurt. It's also just a little bit of you get what you emphasize. And we've emphasized that we want to be a team that continues to play the game with a little bit of physical presence and toughness. And like I said, that being said, there's been some positive momentum as we go through an open date. Maybe you got to find ways to keep that. And we have another one coming up, and then we'll be a break before bowls. How do you keep that momentum and not lose that edge? But I feel we're like a boxer. You know, those boxers, they go into training, you know, they take some time off, but then they go in 6-8 weeks, and it's not learning how to punch. Sometimes it's learning how to take punch and to get your body hardened up. And right now we're at a good place with our offensive line and our offense with that right now, and our running backs.
And one more thing, when you guys sit there and watch video and you see how Justin Fields now is affecting how the other team reacts, like on an option play where the safety takes one bad step, and suddenly it springs J.K. Dobbins on that 6-7 yard run, you know, helps spring him. And you see on the play to Victor, the guy left his area because he thought Justin was going to. What does that just do? What kind of Pandora's box does that open for you guys from a planning standpoint?
Again, every time that quarterback's a run threat, and also a real throw threat, you know, the more you have now. Again, that's in our room with Coach Yursich, Coach Day, and myself with Stud and Alford and Brian, just how not to get all over the place. So like saying you have Pandora's box, let's don't open it up. But we also have a lot of things we can go to. So his ability, he has a unique skill set. He's as skilled as I've been around. And at the same time, I think he's scratching the surface on the player he can be. And that's exciting, but also we got to be smart and keep him healthy and keep him moving in the right direction. There's a lot of things you can do. Just don't want to be too cute and, like you say, get humbled.
Front row middle, Joey from the Dispatch.
Kevin, you were kind of in Ryan's shoes before as a head coach who kind of had a big hand in the offensive game planning, play calling. How do you think Ryan's done this year with doing that, and what's the key for a head coach to?
Well, I think he's done really well. And one of my things, having been there, that I actually said to him, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, was that whatever we're doing, if he doesn't get a comfort level in practice, he's not going to be comfortable wanting to call it or do it. And so there's got to be the right amount of time, whether it be with our staff or what we're putting on the practice tape, and we're getting the looks we need, that he has confidence in what's going on. Because in his world, you can get pulled in a lot of directions and you can get thinned out. And if you get thinned out and you feel the football side of you and the time you want to spend watching tape or prepping's not as high as you'd ideally like it to be because of some things that Jerry and you guys want him to do all the time, and you pull him here and there to do different things, right? You know, well, that being said, it's our job to make sure that he's comfortable and we've got a direction going that when he comes back in, because if he feels good, he's going to be aggressive in the play calling, aggressive in the direction, and your team's in attack mode. So I think it's our job, having been there, to help him, but also him help himself get to a place where he can stay positive and aggressive with what's going on. And what he's seeing, he likes, because if you like it during the week of practice and you got a lot of confidence in your quarterback and your line, what's going on, then you have a chance to be a lot more aggressive as you go out and attack. Now, you got to execute on Saturday, but I think a whole lot of that is how we go through the week, keep him in sync without wearing him out so he can be aggressive. He himself can be fresh. We talk about people getting fresh. Coaches need to be fresh. You know, Coach Stoops was always big at Oklahoma on that, staying fresh, because you're confident and you're more aggressive, more assertive. And right now in 6 weeks, I think he's done a masterful job of that. I think he's been awesome.
You were telling him that during a practice, or
They're doing one of our. We were just talking prior to a meeting one day about something, and I said, "Hey, Coach, listen, I know, we got to get it where you're feeling good about it, because if you feel good about it, it'll flow good. And so that's just a little bit of that's the player's job to practice well. It's the coach's job to be prepared. It's us to put together a great practice script. With again, we do a phenomenal job. We get in practice basically. Coach Ursus and myself, we run the defense, and we're bringing every wheeling, dealing, blitzing, everything we can think of to make our players work. Because the harder practice is, the greater the practice, the greater the game day is going to be. And the more we can make practice a learning environment, but also a confidence builder, I think puts a lot of trust in Coach Day as we keep moving forward.
Folks, I got to wrap it up here. We got time for just a couple more questions. Front row left, Doug from Cleveland.com.
Kevin, we know you're saying, like, when it comes to Luke, it's not about just one play. It's about how you play through the course of a game. But on that touchdown, he seemed pretty determined to find his way into the end zone one way or the other. What did you think of the way he sort of muscled through some of those guys?
I thought he did a great job, too, just taking care of the ball, because as he spun off, he had the ball tight. There's 3 or 4 guys right around him, and it was a heck of a play. And I think, quite honestly, even a conversation I had post-game, he's played well for us. I think he is a better football player than he thinks he is. I'd like to see him play with a lot more confidence, swagger, whatever word you're looking at. I'd like to see, because I think he's capable of being a really complete tight end player. And not because you make one catch. I'm talking about the blocking game and his ability to finish some blocks. He's doing a great job in pass pro, does really well in perimeter. He's our most consistent guy. I'm really challenging him. As good as he's playing, I think he can be more of having that physical, dominating presence you want. I think he can really help us, and Rashad down the stretch, Jake and Jeremy as well.
He said after the game, getting into the end zone just was a big deal to him, that he could do that for his team in that environment. He said it almost made him emotional in the moment. Like, the idea of some of these guys, how much it means to them to do this kind of thing. When you hear one of your guys is so excited about that opportunity, what does that tell you about Luke, or about what you guys are doing here?
Well, one, you want all of them to feel away. It says a lot about Luke. Matter of fact, we went through a couple goals for this week, and one of his goals was to have better effort in practice and have better film study. And here's a guy, I think, doing it maybe the best of anyone I got, saying, I want to be better in those areas. So those are some of those neat skills and qualities that great players have. He's got a good physical skill set. He's got a great inner drive, and like I say, he's a little quiet. I'd like to see his confidence continue to grow. I think he's on the verge of being a really strong player.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.